guys. Welcome to Free Motion Quilting Friday. My name is Holly Ann Knight of String and Story, and it is my job to guide you to quilt with confidence. Y'all, today is a very special day because String and Story's most popular event ever, the Quilting Plan Challenge, is back. And one of the things that I want to talk about today is what that means and to make sure that you know that you're invited. So if you are here with me live or catching the replay, go ahead and say hi in the chat. I'm going to get this open here on my laptop, and I just realized that this is angled up very high. So let us do a small adjustment of the camera angle, shall we? We are going to just scoot back a wee bit and tilt this down a little bit so I don't look quite like I'm floating so much. Now you get to see the lovely clutter that I have for us because I have some show and tell this morning. And we are just going to have a big old time. Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, Gigi. Have I cut my own head off now? Yes, I have. You know, never a dull moment around here. Never a dull moment. This is what happens when I set it up myself and I'm like too excited to pay attention to what I'm doing. Okay. Hello again. If you're just joining us again, I'm Holly Ann Knight of String and Story. It's my job to guide you to quilt with confidence. And this morning, we are here to hang out and have a great time. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat right now. This is your invitation to sign up for the Quilting Plan Challenge. Now, one reason you're going to want to sign up is for this lovely workbook. The Quilting Plan Challenge this year is going to be from August 23rd to 27th. And we are asking the question, what the heck do I quilt where? And then we're going to spend our time together that week answering that question, starting with what is a quilting plan and like why the heck does that matter, all the way down to, okay, so I have a quilting plan. I'm ready to actually quilt the thing. What about my tension, right? Because the two top questions that I get asked about how to learn free motion quilting is how do I decide what to quilt where? And how do I handle my tension without ending up with a lot of tension, right? Because so often tension's stressful. We end up with our just shoulders and our ears going, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can make these stitches look good. We're tackling all of those questions August 23rd through 27th. The challenge is totally free. It will be hosted here live on YouTube. Technically speaking, you can just come join me each day at 3 p.m. Eastern or catch the replay after that. But by signing up with your email address, you get this really fabulous workbook. I'm just going to flip through it for you. We'll pretend this is like story time. So a little welcome from me to you, an introduction to the quilt that I'm going to be talking about as our example that week, our lovely schedule, what is a quilting plan, types of quilting plans. I did not update the dates inside this workbook, so I'll be doing that at some point this afternoon. How to draw a quilting plan, navigating your quilting plan, and then tension without tension. And each day I have a little worksheet for you that you can fill in as I'm talking. I'm going to have a little slide presentation that I bring that's full of photos and tips and tricks, and then I'll be here answering your questions live. So click the link in the chat and drop your email in to get this delivered straight to your inbox, and print it out or put it on your tablet and be ready to join me on August 23rd. Yay! All right. Good morning, Kate. How are you? All righty. So I have a few other things. I finished binding my placemats. I'm so very excited about them. You guys have been working on these with me for a couple of weeks, so I wanted to show you. These are part of the Quilting Rockstar panel collection. These are the fall placemats. Each placemat panel comes 6 to a panel, and they're all different, but they all coordinate. And there are 4 different colorways. Like I said, these are the fall panels. You can see the quilting here on the back. I love these because they now look like they were pieced, right? But they are, in fact, not pieced, as you all know. So, dun da da da! Good morning, Val. I'm so glad that you are here. The other thing that I worked on this week, and some of you guys probably saw this on Instagram, is I finished quilting this Lanterns of Hope panel. This is the spring summer colorway. I love it. What I especially love about this panel was such a learning experience for me. So I'm going to hold it a little closer so you guys can see some of the wonkiness. Feel free to cast a slightly judgmental eye on my switchbacks over here. Here's why I'm going to point that out. Learning a new machine is no joke. So many of y'all know that I got the Moxie long arm from Handy Quilter early this year. And the reality is I just have not spent a whole lot of time on it yet, right? It's a new to me machine. I am still adjusting to it. But what I love is one, by the end of this panel, my quilting was definitely improving. We're starting to build a nice trusting relationship, my Moxie and I. But the other thing is I used an emerald green thread on this panel. And when I'm up close and tell you to look at my switchbacks with a slightly judgmental eye, it becomes pretty apparent that they're a little wonky, right? It's a high contrast thread. I was definitely getting my sea legs on a new machine. But when I back up, those wibble wobbles become so much less obvious. And I think that is an excellent lesson for all of us in the grace that happens with free motion quilting. We are our own worst critics. And even as I was quilting this panel, it was very difficult for me to like let those things be, right? But I also had to recognize like this is my first custom quilted quilt on this machine. So we got to work through some of those lumps and bumps in the road in order for the quilting to get smoother, right? So a reminder for you as you are quilting today or this weekend, especially for those of you who are finishing up Free Motion Quilting Academy, you are your own worst critic. When you look at your quilting, you are going to see more mistakes than anyone else will. But always remember to take a step back and gain a little bit of perspective, because just giving yourself the grace, even just to step back, will show you that our human eye loves to autocorrect, and the gorgeous texture that you've made with your free motion quilting, even if it's not perfect, is a beautiful, beautiful effect to add to your quilts. And the most important thing is that you're making quilts that you and your loved ones can snuggle under, okay? Good morning, Sharon. So y'all, for the rest of our time here this morning, I am going to be making binding for this lovely spring summer Lanterns of Hope quilt. This is, I think it's Bittersweet. Let me make sure I have the color name correct. Hold please. Ba, ba, ba. Yes, Bittersweet. This is a painter's palette solid from Paintbrush Studio Fabrics. This solid is in the String and Story shop. And I mention that because it's so beautiful. And I honestly have been surprised that it has not been a more popular color, because I just think it is absolutely stunning. So shameless plug for this Bittersweet color this morning. All right, let's make some binding. How are you guys? As I am doing this, let me know in the chat what you are up to today, what you're working on. And if you have any questions about the Quilting Plan Challenge that's coming up, I would be absolutely delighted to answer them, because I would love to see you inside the challenge. When we did this in May, I think we had 5,000, maybe a little bit more than that, people sign up. It was an extremely popular event. And I think it's going to be just as popular this time around. And I am completely excited about that, because it's such an important thing, right? To get these questions answered about free motion quilting, because I very much believe that we put free motion quilting up on a pedestal. We make it to be this very scary thing, you know, that only professionals and long armers should mess around with. But really, free motion quilting is a lot of fun. And answering some of those core questions that are roadblocks to my rock stars is one of my very favorite things. Actually, there's another great question for you guys. How many of you guys were part of the last Quilting Plan Challenge and had an opportunity to go through those lessons with me? I'm going to sail right along on this binding, and then I'm going to have to go grab another project. Lucky for me, I have about 75 projects floating around in here, right? Y'all are quiet this morning. Let's see, what else have we been working on over here? So the Quilting Plan Challenge, I'm just going to yak about it. Here's what I think is special about the Quilting Plan Challenge. Sometimes, as quilters, we want to learn a thing like free motion quilting, right? But either we believe the narrative that I was just sharing with you guys, that it's something that's best left to the professionals, and we just are not sure that we want to mess with it at all. Or sometimes we think that we maybe could learn, but we're scared to ask the questions we need to ask, right? So y'all may or may not know that I also teach an incubator for small business owners who are wanting to create online courses and who are wanting to teach arts and crafts online. And we were talking about this yesterday, and we were talking about the importance of remembering the early questions, right? Remembering what it felt like to be brand new at something. Because, if we look at our kids or look at our grandkids, or maybe if you teach, look at your students, we have wonderful examples around us of beginners who are not scared to be beginners, right? But somewhere along the way, as grown-ups, we forget that it's okay to be new at something, right? We forget that it's okay to have basic entry-level questions. We somehow arrive at this narrative that we think that we need to have a certain level of knowledge when we're brand new. Why would we have a certain level of knowledge about something, right? And so I was talking with my incubator folks yesterday about the importance of remembering what it's like to be a beginner, remembering what it's like to be brand new at something, and remembering the questions that we had that maybe it was hard to find answers to, right? And I think that's what I love about the Quilting Plan Challenge is if you are curious about learning free motion quilting, you are a baby beginner at free motion quilting. Let's see, I need fabric scissors. Woo, hit my foot pedal. That was great. Um, you're curious about learning free motion quilting, you're a baby beginner at it. But if we are scared to ask the questions we need to ask, right, then we get stuck and it's hard to make progress on this new skill. And that's what I love about the Quilting Plan Challenge is it's an opportunity to ask those questions. And it's a time where I've put a lot of time and effort and work into really trying to think through what are those baby beginner questions and how can we take some of the fear and uncertainty and overwhelm out of beginning to learn a new skill by creating a safe space to address and answer and ask questions like that, right? Let's see. Val says, I've made 2 quilt tops of bees, one for my boyfriend and one for his cousin. They're just like the one for my boyfriend. Let's see. The one for my boyfriend was my first quilt. So I did straight line quilting when I was not, and when I was not. Oh, Val, what's the rest? Oh, here we go. When I was not working, I was practicing free motion quilting. So the second quilt is being quilted with free motion quilting. Val, that's amazing. Also, congratulations on your first 2 quilts. That's absolutely wonderful. Oh, I love new quilters, you guys. That's so exciting. Okay, I'm remembering why I bought new fabric scissors. Oh, they are right here. Hold, please. I was like, oh yeah, I remember having this issue last week, and so I bought new scissors. Admittedly, those orange Fisker scissors have served me faithfully for 5 years now, so I don't feel too bad about a wee upgrade. Hopefully this is an upgrade. I don't know. They're at least fresh scissors, right? Val, welcome to the quilting universe. I'm so excited about that. And way to go. I love that you jumped right in on learning free motion quilting. Um, I did something very similar when I first started quilting that I actually had stumbled across pictures of free motion quilting very early on and really fallen in love with the effect. Um, but I was so new that I didn't know I was supposed to be scared of free motion quilting. I found that out later, but by then it was too late and I'd kind of gotten hooked. But I think that's a wonderful time to learn free motion quilting is when you're brand new and maybe don't know yet that you should be scared, right? And for those of you who like me, or for those of you not like me, per the story I just shared, but for those of you who are already familiar with that narrative of being nervous about free motion quilting, it's time to prove that narrative wrong. As a total aside, this is not sponsored, but I'm about to use this thing, so I want to tell you about it. If y'all don't know about the Sunflower Quilts thread cutter for when you've done chain piecing like this, life freaking changing. Look at that. Bum, bum, bum. What I love about it too is your kids can do it. So when my kids were really little and they wanted to be in the sewing room and I wanted to be in the sewing room and I wanted them occupied in the sewing room, this was their job. Let's see. Val says, I made them in memory of his uncle who was a beekeeper until he passed away a few years ago. That's amazing. I love it. I love it. All right, we made our binding. Let me grab another project. This is what I love, you guys, about Free Motion Quilting Friday, is we putter and we chatter. And I peek at my tension and realize that I might need to adjust it. Let's see, which section is that? Yeah, that's the section I was just working on. Might need to make a tension adjustment. Just barely though. Okay, that's good information. So here's a little tip with tension. Check it often. That's my tip with tension. Check it often. Because you never quite know when something might go slightly awry, right? I'm going to rethread this machine with this pink thread. Now, some of you may be thinking, oh, Holly Ann, if you noticed that your tension needs to be adjusted, are you going to unpick the bit that you were just looking at? I'm not, because there's not eyelashes. And only because I was looking so closely do I think I caught it. But I also, if I'm quilting for someone else and things are off, I'm way more likely to like fully unpick and restitch. If I'm just quilting for me and I notice that the tension gets just a wee bit off, then I will often leave it and just adjust it. That's why I recommend checking it often. Let's see. That should be good. That's why I recommend checking it often, so you can catch issues early before it becomes like, oh, I definitely need to rip that out, right? But these that I'm working on are for me / might be little booth demos for the upcoming fall festival. Okay, so Val is working on her bee quilts. What are the rest of you guys working on? Thank you so much for joining me kind of spontaneously on this Friday morning. This is very exciting. Love a little opportunity to quilt in the morning. And y'all, I want to make a little comment on the fact that because I decided to change projects, right? I'm also changing feet, I'm changing thread. This is something that frequently becomes a roadblock to practicing free motion quilting, is having to change your presser foot and change your thread. It doesn't take as long as our brains tell us that it takes, just as a reminder. It is so easy for us to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to change my presser foot. I'm going to have to rethread my machine. Never mind. I just won't practice free motion quilting right now, right? Like those little friction points, we build them up in our head. So this is your friendly reminder that is your head building up a narrative, and that it doesn't actually take that long to change. Another thing I would recommend is anytime you leave your sewing space, go ahead and set up for what you want to work on the next time you're in your sewing space, okay? All right, let's see. Hey, Fiona, great to see you. Yay. Val also comments that she will be glad when she can get all her stitches the same size on free motion quilting. You will get there, Fiona. You will get things very even before you know it. It comes with practice. And it is okay that they will probably never be perfectly even. I've seen many a show quilt where the stitches are not perfectly even, but they get real close. That's the beauty of practice. All right, let's see how this tension is. Okay, so I identified an issue on my tension, right? And I've adjusted it. But now this is testing it. I could go a little bit tighter. And I can tell you right now, the reason it's a little bit off is probably because I was quilting with 40 weight last week, and I don't know if I adjusted my tension after that. Oops. Remember that if you change between thread weights, you'll probably need to tweak your tension. Let's see. Oh, that looks real nice. Yay! Okay, brilliant. Right, Javi? Brilliant. Oh, I wondered if you were going to come be a pain if I said your name. You want to come say hi? Come here. Say hi to everyone. Oh, you want to investigate? What do you think? Oh, careful. Careful, please. Your tail's in the thread. Your tail's in the thread. Hello. I love you. You may not sit there because I need to quilt. I know. Big size. I love you too. Come on. Come on, come on, come on. Burp. Hop down. Hop down. Get on down. Go to your quilt. Good girl. Good girl. Alrighty. So you may remember from previous weeks working on this table runner. I made good progress on this too. So this is another panel from the Quilting Rockstars panel collection. This is the Octagon table runners. It comes 3 to a panel. This is the spring colorway. I have a very simple quilting plan for this. I'm doing swirls in the octagons and I'm doing loopy meanders in the background, okay? It's very straightforward. Just adding some nice texture. What I love about these table runners is they are like an ideal candidate, you know, to like put across the table, and you can have like a vase of flowers here, salt and pepper here, the butter dish here, and it just adds a nice little something something. So it doesn't need to be super fancily quilted unless you wanted to do that as like a practice or, you know, just to show off, like rock on with your bad self. But just having a little bit of texture on these, it adds a little touch to the table, you know? Let's see. Val says, got any tips on how to keep the stitches all the same size? Practice is going to be your biggest thing, Val. When did my camera shift to be cutting my head off again? Good grief. I'm so sorry, everyone. Or maybe it's just my view on my laptop. Or maybe I just scrolled down. That might be the problem. Fancy Joe! Oh, I just scrolled down. Okay. We're plenty wide. Practice is going to be your biggest thing, Val. Also, go fast when you're free motion quilting. Like, I know that sounds like kind of silly and reckless advice, but it's easier. It's easier to keep your stitches even if your needle is moving quickly, right? I would rather your quilting, this is part of what happened with this Lanterns of Hope situation, right? Even though I have a stitch regulator on the Moxie, I would rather, Patty, I'm so glad you're here. I would rather your motifs be a little sloppy for a moment while you kind of get used to moving your hands that fast. Then you move at the slower speed that your hands feel comfortable with, but then your stitches are going to be longer, right? Let it have shorter stitches, faster needle movement, and feeling a little bit like, whoo, like my motifs are a little bit sloppy because I'm moving so quickly. Experiment with that on some practice sandwiches and stick with it long enough to watch your motifs tidy up, because they will, right? If you have been doodling on paper and you understand how the motifs work and you can draw them pretty tidily, though admittedly, often I quilt motifs better than I draw them, your hands will catch up. Like your hands and brain will get in sync with that faster needle movement, okay? All right, so do you guys want the wide angle or do you want me to bring you around over my shoulder? You want to come see up close? Let's do that. That sounds like fun. How are we doing? Oh, yeah, we got a good 10 minutes or so we can quilt. All right, y'all are going to get to see the boxes on the other side of the room because that's what happens around here. We'll try not to make this too meta with you guys being able to see the laptop. I'll scoot it back. All right, nice up close and personal view here. Let's do this. Okay, so you guys can see I actually have 2 thread colors going here. I use an emerald green over on this section, and I will switch back to that when I finish that quilting panel. Here I'm using this variegated pink thread that y'all can't quite see in the video. Both the colors are part of the Spring Summer Rockstar 2 thread collection. It's a collection with Aurifil that's sold exclusively through String and Story. So, yes. But I highly recommend it if you've got these panels, because then you have all the coordinating colors, and I'm kind of obsessed with this variegated pink, I'm not gonna lie. All right, we've checked our tension, pulled our threads up to the surface. Now, oof, that's a lot of extra thread. Let's tidy ourselves up here. Val, I'm glad you found that helpful. Yay! What you may be able to see here is I ran out of bottom thread, which is why I had a thread break here. But I've been working my way around with this loopy meander, and then I just kind of periodically pop in and do one of the hexagons, okay? I'm gonna put my threads back there to get them out of the way to start the swirl. Kind of a funky place to have to start a swirl. Notice here we were just talking about, moving that needle pretty quickly and then letting your hands play the catch-up game. But notice even here, like my needle's moving very fast, but my hands still don't have to move that quickly. And I think that's part of it as well, is we hear the rhythm of that needle and it can feel a little anxiety inducing of like, oh my gosh, I need to be moving so much faster. Like I need to be driving this thing like a race car. But you don't, because you want those stitches, to be nice and tidy. All right, so I have this section of this octagon to go. I'm gonna try to end over here, right off the side of this light pink so that I can come back out with this loopy meander. All right, I say that out loud because it's gonna give me a good visual reference as I continue to fill in, right? Now, I will admit, it is not my favorite to stop a section of swirls partway through and come back to it. Swirls are a motif for me, very even, and some days I get them very loosey-goosey and wonky. And so I'm always nervous if I stop in the middle of quilting swirls and come back. Because I'm like, well, might be in a different swirl mood next time I'm quilting this. May not look super cohesive. I think we're doing okay so far today. Thank goodness. Any other questions, guys? That was a great question, Val. Thank you for asking that. If you are working on free motion quilting and you have been running into things you need help troubleshooting, this is an absolutely fabulous moment to ask. So notice how I'm coming back around. I'm just making sure that I'm filling in while I'm over here. Traveling my little faux ditch there. All right. Remember, I'm wanting to end right in here somewhere. So keeping that in mind, that I'm going to kind of now circle back this way as I'm quilting. Can you guys see how a little bit of the ease of this panel has gotten trapped inside this octagon? Because I've gone and I've stitched all the way around it, and you can just barely see these little wrinkles. Now notice as I'm quilting, I'm ever so gently just like putting a tiny bit of pressure on this fabric. It's just going to help pull it smooth as I'm quilting. I don't want to stretch the fabric. I don't want to distort the fabric. I just want to make sure that none of that ease can kind of catch up to itself, if that makes sense. So far, we are doing a-okay. Yeah, probably one more swirl and then a few echoes. So again here, I'm just going to travel in this little faux ditch. We'll add one last echo and then jump right back out into the background. We'll come up and fill in this little section. Now, I'm quilting some of these loops right up against the edge here. They will get lost in the binding. The nice thing about loopy meander, though, is that won't necessarily show up and be distracting on the back end. Hey, sweet girl. You guys see Abby? Hi. Mwah. No, no jumping. Get down. Down. Good girl. Thank you. Notice how I repositioned my hand there? I don't have a lot of room to hang on. And so by holding my hands asymmetrically, like one hand directly to the left of my quilting and one hand back behind, it just gives me a little bit wider area of control as I get away from a bit of that edge. All right, I have one octagon left. My plan right now is I'm going to fill in over to about here, and then I will grab my ruler and stitch in the ditch all the way around. I will quilt those swirls roughly counterclockwise and then come back out and finish the loopy meander, okay? Anytime we're quilting a background in sections like this, it's good to think about ways to make the lines blurry, right? So this is the same thing. I got a question yesterday, and I think it was Information Quilting Academy, about if you're working like in quadrants on a quilt, especially if you're working on a domestic and you're doing it all over a design and you decide to quilt from the center out, not treating those quadrant lines as too firm, right? Think of them as like wavy lines so that if I quilt this section and then quilt this section, where those meet overlaps a little bit so that it doesn't visually look like you worked in quadrants. So that's the same thing of what I'm doing here. If I know that I'm going to come back up from the bottom, so not ending here at the narrowest point, but ending up here where it'll be a little easier to blend these sections together. Here too, you can see there's a little bit of ease from the panel, that it's just the fabric is moving a little bit as I'm working. Again, just keeping an eye on it, making sure that that ease doesn't have the opportunity to double up on itself and create any creases. So see how I went over and then kind of came back to hit that section? That's an opportunity just to keep the design looking pretty random. So it's not obviously worked back and forth, right? Fiona says, when will I get there? We'll do my best anyway, doing big stitch hand quilting on my husband's quilts for his birthday. Fiona, you're doing great. All it takes is practice. Truly, I know that sounds like so overly simplistic, but an enormous part of my job as guiding you to quilt with confidence is encouraging you to keep going and keep practicing, even when it doesn't feel sexy, even when it doesn't feel like progress, right? All right, this is a ruler foot, so I have nice tall sides here, which means I can grab a quilting ruler. This is the 4-in-1 ruler by Natalia Bonner. Happens to be my favorite quilting ruler, and I'm just going to use this straight edge to guide myself. I don't have to switch directions when I'm using a ruler. Like I could do it like free motion quilting. It's pretty omnidirectional, but I am a lot tidier when I'm doing straight lines like this if I rotate the quilt around. So you'll notice that I do that even though it's not strictly necessary. It's also just a little bit more ergonomic. It is easier to move in a straight line directly away from or directly towards yourself because of the way that your shoulders and elbow joints are made. So we're going to do that. You could, of course, do this with a walking foot before adding the free motion quilting. So you could do this ahead of time and then just go back in and add the free motion quilting on these panels. I'm adding this stitch in the ditch, not because I need it to secure the quilt, but because it will add to the illusion that this is a pieced quilt. It is not a pieced quilt, it's a printed panel, but stitching where the ditch would be gives a bit of that visual indication. Way back over here on this one, here, let me show you this. This first one, notice I did all the ditches because I wanted it to truly look fully pieced, right? But what I decided is that while it definitely lends itself to the illusion really, really well, this truly looks like a pieced octagon. I didn't love the added work. I didn't feel like the effect was worth the added work of hitting all of those straight lines. So I changed that on these second ones, and you can see it doesn't look quite as pieced. You can particularly tell here right at the center. You may not be able to tell in the video. I can tell in person, right? Like, because I can see that little intersection point that it is printed, but I just kind of decided that I don't care, right? Like it has enough of the illusion. At first glance, it looks pieced. You know, and the point of these panels, of course, is to save us time and anxiety when it comes to our free motion quilting. Like we could piece this and it would look very nice. Notice my my ruler work was a little off there. Oh well. We could piece this, but these are a great opportunity to have quilts that don't necessarily look like panels, but give us that mental and emotional freedom, frankly, to practice our free motion quilting or to practice our ruler work or to practice our walking foot quilting without being nervous that we are going to ruin our quilts, right? Without being nervous that like we've spent time, energy, money, blood, sweat, tears piecing a gorgeous thing. And then because we're still new at free motion quilting, we're going to feel like we have wrecked it somehow if the quilting doesn't come out just so. All right. Another great thing about these panels is that they're a wonderful opportunity to practice making quilting plans. So we were talking at the top of the hour together about the upcoming Quilting Plan Challenge. In fact, after I make the swirl, I'll drop that link in the chat again for you guys, for those of you who have jumped on since we got started. The Quilting Plan Challenge is a free 5-day event that I'm offering towards the end of August, and we are tackling the question, what the heck do I quilt wear? Let me lean right in front of you guys real quick. Drop this link again. Tackling the question, what the heck do I quilt wear, right? And making a quilting is like making a map for yourself of how you're going to quilt something so that you take some of that guesswork and anxiety out of the process and you get to enjoy the journey, enjoy the making of the thing instead of being like, oh my gosh, am I about to ruin something that I spent so much time and energy on? So we're going to talk about exactly what a quilting plan is, how to make one, and then move into some really practical things like, okay, well, now that I have a quilting plan, how do I adjust my tension, right? How do I actually bring this thing into fruition? It's a totally free challenge. I'll be teaching it here on YouTube live, August 23rd to 27th. But there is a sign up because if you sign up, one, then I get to know that your lovely self is going to come join us, but you also get this really fabulous workbook that has information about the challenge in it and also has little fill in the blanks for every single day so that you can follow along with me and really get the most out of our time together. So this was our absolute most popular event ever when I taught it back in May. And I would love for you to join me for this encore because I think it is going to be completely wonderful. It's been amazing to me since I taught it back in May. The videos I taught here on YouTube, but only the first video is still available publicly. All the videos were not available indefinitely. And we probably get an email almost every day from someone asking like, oh, where can I find the rest of those videos? Like I found that first video so helpful. I've been having to tell people, wait for August, wait for August. And now we're finally here. That ended up being kind of an oval. Interesting. All right, all right. So, y'all, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to finish quilting this right around the way that we talked about in this counterclockwise way, and then finish up my loopy meander, and I will be done with this panel. I will hopefully be back next Friday. I'll keep you posted. The best way to know if I'm going to be live is to watch my stories on Instagram at String and Story. And I try to update every Friday morning if I'm going to be able to be live and what time to join me. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope I'll see you inside the Quilting Plan Challenge. And I hope you've enjoyed this little break to stitch together. Bye for now.